The 49ers made some news today in a couple of ways. They're going to probably be making some tomorrow, depending on what happens with the surgery for one of their quarterbacks. We're going to talk about that and a lot more on tonight's Jack Hammer Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. Hope you're all doing well. Let's get into it. Big day for the 49ers today. They had some good news come down the pike, so we'll touch on that. We'll touch on the news that should be happening tomorrow. We'll take a little bit of a look at free agency, the overall quarterback market, and kind of where the 49ers sit going into next Monday. So, as you know, or you may or may not know, I guess, the free agency doesn't start Wednesday. That's when teams can make signings official. But the actual kickoff to free agency is going to be coming on Monday. That is the open tampering period in the NFL. A portion of NFL free agency will begin on Monday. So that's when teams and players are going to be able to start negotiating contracts. We're going to start seeing reports from the Adam Schefters and Ian Rappaports of the world about player X has agreed to terms with Team Y, and it's all going to start up on Monday. We'll find out, we'll see what happens with Jimmy Garoppolo. There might be some news coming up, even on Monday with Garoppolo. I don't think he's going to be dangling out there that long. So we'll see how it goes. And then from there, it's going to be quite a bit. Tomorrow we have Brock Purdy news that we should have. So coming down. So it's going to be interesting, but real quick, just want to shout out a few folks. We got, Daniel Brendan over here in the comment section says, "Woo, Jack." He says he's watching from Santa Cruz. Hey, hope you're staying as dry as you can over there, Daniel. I was in that area earlier today, and this afternoon the rain was really coming down. So stay safe over there. And then also we have Rohan Chakravarthi. Everybody knows Rohan. Rohan's the man when it comes to 49ers content creators lately. He's really been making a big push really since – we're looking at like training camp time period, right around there, maybe a little past that. But Rohan's a great guy. Usually do my shows with him on Fridays. Didn't work out last week, but hopefully we'll get a chance to talk with him soon on the channel. We also have Tap Out, who says, "Hello, Faithful. What do you think needs to happen at the quarterback position?" And I'll come back to that one. That's a good one. And then we got Luke Walsh as well, who says, "Hi, everyone." And so before I get into some of the things that I had thought about talking, let's get into this one. Tap Out wants to know what needs to happen at the quarterback position. And I talked about this earlier in the week. I talked about it Tuesday, I think it was. I've been talking quarterbacks for quite a while, but the Baltimore Ravens decision to use the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson totally changed the discussion around the quarterback position with the 49ers. Is it a long shot for the 49ers to acquire Lamar Jackson? Absolutely. Totally. It's a long shot, but this is a time where you have an NFL MVP quarterback that's available. That doesn't happen very often. And I know, like I just said, it's going to take some maneuvering on the 49ers parts to be able to make that happen. And Baltimore would have to agree to some things there as well. It'd really have to be a kind of a sign and trade type of deal. But my belief at the quarterback position is if you have a chance to go out and get a player the caliber of a Lamar Jackson, you go and do it. In the NFL, the way that the salary cap is, it's a real thing. You have to deal with the salary cap every year. However, if you really want players to be on your team, you can move things around. You can maneuver around that salary cap to make things work. We saw the 49ers do this for years when the salary cap first came out. That's part of how they built that team that won the Super Bowl in 1994. They had a lot of their own stars. They had some stars on that team already, but they went out and they signed a bunch of guys to contracts where they put money out into the future and those types of things. And you can still do that. So, like, for example, Lamar Jackson, you give Lamar Jackson a contract just say with the dollar figures of give him $1 million more per year than Deshaun Watson got, and you're still going to be able to bring him in and pay him, probably have a salary cap number of around $10 to $11 million next year. That's manageable. If you can't trade, I've heard conflicting reports as far as the ability to trade a player to make that happen. But let's just say the 49ers trade, a first and a second and a bunch of other picks down the road or whatever it is. Let's just say you bring in Lamar Jackson. You can make it work around the salary cap and still keep Nick Bosa and still keep all these guys. We're going to talk a little bit about free agency and the way that the 49ers can actually create a bunch of cap space for themselves right now. They went into today with just about $8 million in cap room, a little bit less. So it's there. But, as far as the quarterback position, it's totally unstable right now. And that's what KW2421 says here. We need stability at the quarterback position. Absolutely. And the 49ers don't have any of that stability at all right now. There's the quarterback position, most important spot on your roster for San Francisco, is completely unstable at the moment. You have Brock Purdy going under the knife tomorrow. You have Trey Lance, who you're not quite sure what he is yet. He's a guy you spend a boatload of picks to pick up, but you're not quite sure what you're going to get out of him. And then as far as number 3, you don't have anyone there. I mean, think about it this way. At this moment right now, the 49ers do not have a quarterback on their roster who is healthy. So that's a problem for the 49ers. And I agree with Ian Sharp here, who says that the 4-quarterback system is getting old. And I agree. It is. It's getting very old. So the 49ers, though, do need to build some things around. And Tap Out says, I agree with you, Jack. I do think Trey Lance could be great. And who knows? He that's the thing, is that he could potentially, he has the potential, right? He's got the arm, he's got the head. He just needs to play. He doesn't have reps. That's his biggest thing. He just doesn't have. You look at the number of snaps he has as a quarterback, and since 2019, if you take 2019 till now, and it's almost nothing. And 2018 he didn't play, only had a few snaps. 2017 was the last year where he played multiple snaps. That was a senior year in high school. So he just hasn't. The biggest problem that Trey Lance has is he just hasn't had a chance to play. And so we don't know what he's going to be. You can see this. Like Kyle Shanahan said this back in August. You can watch him on film at North Dakota State. You can watch him on film with the 49ers. You can see flashes of a guy who can be great. The problem in the NFL is that you have to be able to do those things over and over again. They have to be repeatable. We talk a lot about, quarterbacks just being consistent in general. Part of that consistency is having it just where everything they do is repeatable, where you can call a play and you know that every time this is the way that it's going to look. And I think that's where we are right now. We'll find out if Trey Lance can get there or not. And then KW2421 comes in with another really good comment. He says that I want to hit on. He says, the thing is, I like the idea of getting Lamar Jackson, but I'm not sure he fits into Kyle Shanahan's system. The quarterbacks that have success in it is because they have good timing and accuracy, not really Lamar Jackson's strengths. And I disagree with this. I disagree with this on a number of different levels. Let's start off with the timing and accuracy portion of this. If you look at the numbers for Lamar Jackson, he has been very good in the short to mid-range throws over the middle, which is where the majority of Kyle Shanahan's offense works. It's very much in between the numbers. You're going to make throws outside the numbers every once in a while, but the majority of what this offense is quick throws in between the numbers. And you look at at last year's ratings, and you look at what these quarterbacks did from the pocket, the top quarterbacks in the NFL, and Lamar Jackson was at the top. This is the guy who has improved. He's never gonna be pinpoint accurate, like on the money every time. He's not that guy, but I think that the stuff that I'm seeing about him as far as a quarterback in terms of his throwing ability is being undermined quite a bit. This is the guy who is much better as a thrower than I think's out there. You look at the numbers really quick. If just as a lot of people look at Josh Allen as kind of being the next great quarterback that hasn't gotten over the hump yet. Well, if you compare Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson as throwers of the football, Lamar Jackson has a higher completion percentage, a higher touchdown percentage, and he has the same interception percentage as Josh Allen. So there's not much of a difference there. And then as a runner, I think you're looking at Lamar Jackson probably being a little bit more dynamic runner of the two. Josh Allen, a very good runner, but he's a little bit more of a power runner. And then in terms of fitting into Shanahan's system, we talked about how he would fit there in the passing game. In the running game, we've already seen it. He would be able to seamlessly step into the offense that we've seen the 49ers try to employ with Trey Lance, except for this is a guy who can, I think, is more prepared to run it. Trey Lance never really ran the read option or the zone read, in the way that what you're seeing the 49ers try to run with him now. Lamar Jackson has. He did it in college. He's done it with the Ravens. The other thing that I'd say real quick about Lamar Jackson, he's never played with a team that's close to what he would have with the 49ers. You look to the team that he had in 2019 when he won his MVP. He had Willie Snead as his second leading wide receiver. The tight end, Mark Andrews, was their the top guy. But in terms of the wide receivers, Willie Snead was had the second most receptions on that team as far as the wideouts. And take that for what it's worth. Willie Snead was a member of the 49ers this year, barely could get on the field. And that's never really changed during his time there. In addition, Greg Roman is a guy who I think there's some good things that he does, but you're not going to confuse Greg Roman's passing schemes with those of Kyle Shanahan. So if you were to bring Lamar Jackson into a Kyle Shanahan offense with the playmakers that they have here in Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, those four guys, that's way better than anything he's ever played with in Baltimore. And I notice I didn't mention Brandon Ayuk because I think that if they don't trade Trey Lance as part of that package or tried to, I think that you might see Ayuk be the guy that would be traded potentially. We'll see. I don't know. But that's a long shot. But if you could get Lamar Jackson, and right now, like I said, it's out there. There's a possibility. We'll see how it works out and if they're able to go in that direction. Now, in terms of the 49ers quarterback situation as a whole, right now, what we know is it's a big day tomorrow. Brock Purdy is going to be having his surgery tomorrow. It's scheduled to be done tomorrow in Dallas. Dr. Keith Meister, the Texas Rangers team physician, orthopedic surgeon, is going to be doing the surgery on Brock Purdy. At this point, we don't know anything more beyond that. It's all speculation. We know that the surgery is happening. We know that the 49ers and Brock Purdy prefer or hope to have it be the internal brace procedure. Hope isn't really a strategy. It is what it is. And, if they get the internal brace, if they're able to go that route, Brock Purdy, the timeline is 6 months. Give or take a little bit, because you never know exactly how somebody's body is going to respond, right? I would say that it's possible that you would see him back in 5 months, 5.5, in that ballpark, 6. It'd go up to 7. If it's that internal brace, we don't know. The surgeries when it comes to quarterbacks is different than what it is for baseball players in terms of the return, because throwing a football is just a different process altogether. So we'll see how it works out, but that's the goal, is that it's going to be the internal brace. So if they get in there tomorrow and aren't able to do that, there's a hybrid method, which is kind of a cross between the two, that along with some other things. I'm not sure exactly all what it is, but that would push it out to more of a 9-month time period for Purdy to return. Now, just for dates perspective, if Brock Purdy gets the internal brace and all is good, a 6-month turnaround, which is 24 weeks from the date of surgery, would put Purdy back with the 49ers, fully cleared. At that point would be the 25th of August, which is the day after the final preseason game. So a little over 2 weeks before the start of the regular season. I remember there's a good amount of practicing that would be taking place between that and the start of the regular season. There would also, I think with this internal brace, one of the things that I've heard is that around 3 months, he's going to be able to start throwing. So there's a ramp up to that. So if it is the internal brace, he should be throwing the ball at a fairly strong velocity around the start of training camp. So he's going to have the ability to be around and possibly practice. Again, that's if it's the internal brace, though. If it's not the internal brace, like I said, the hybrid, that's 9 months. So that's going to put him, instead of August, that's November. That's around a November timeframe. And then if it's a full-on Tommy John, we won't see him at all this year. So tomorrow's a big day for the 49ers. And it's a big day because we'll find out what happens here. I think, John Lynch has gone on record as saying that Brock Purdy played well enough to be the starter going forward. That all depends on his health right now. And Trey Lance is going to get a chance here to get a lot of reps in the meantime. But the reason that this is a big deal for the 49ers is it's going to give them direction on what they're going to do at the quarterback position as a whole. You have Trey Lance, who I said is going to get the full run of the offseason. He's not cleared yet, but he should be cleared by May when the team hits the field for the first time in OTAs. And then outside of that, you start to look at the veteran free agent market for quarterbacks and who's out there. Lamar Jackson would be probably number one, like I said, if they could make that happen. Let's take Lamar Jackson off of the list right now, and let's just look at the veteran quarterbacks as a whole. The one name that I keep hearing brought up when it comes to the 49ers, it was originally mentioned last weekend, and it's kind of continued to filter through this week. And I saw an article just today, I think it was, where Baker Mayfield to the 49ers is the direction that a lot of people are leaning the 49ers should go. For myself, for Jack Hammer and his opinion, I would go after Baker Mayfield. This is a guy who was the number one pick in the draft in 2018. There's a reason for it. The reason that he was really good in college, and he hasn't been bad in the NFL. He just, again, there's situations are tough. And I think when it comes to Baker Mayfield, if he was with the 49ers, with the talent that this offense has, playing with Kyle Shanahan, who tends to get the most out of quarterbacks. You've seen what he's been able to do, even with like guys like, look at how, even with a guy who is guys who aren't starters, how the numbers that this offense has been able to put up with Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard. We saw it with pretty much every quarterback that's been out there. They can move the ball. And so you start to look around. Baker Mayfield is a guy who I like. I like Mayfield's makeup. I like my quarterback to have an edge to him. That's one of the things that I like about Brock Purdy, is that he's not worried about going out and basically telling you I'm the man, right? There's a belief in him, and Mayfield, KW2421 is asking, is Mayfield going to be cool with being a backup? I think he wants to be a starter. Well, I'm sure he probably wants to be a starter, but I also think that Mayfield at this point knows he's not going to get signed for a starter role pretty much anywhere in the NFL at this point. I think that was pretty clear by the way things went down last offseason. He ends up in Carolina, and then he ends up getting cut there, goes to the Rams because of the waiver wire. I think he's of the understanding that anywhere he goes, he's going to have to compete for his role, and we'll see how it works out. But I do think that Baker Mayfield on the 49ers would be a good veteran option, solid player behind to push Trey Lance through the training camp off season and those types of things. I think that that would be a good spot there for Mayfield. is to come to the 49ers. If it's not Baker Mayfield, some of the other options that are out there, sorry. As far as the other options that are out there, Andy Dalton is a quarterback whose name's been tied to the 49ers quite a bit. I think Dalton would make sense. Again, we're not looking at him coming in. When you look at an Andy Dalton, you're not asking or expecting him to come in and be your day one starter this season. You're expecting him to come in and be a backup to Trey Lance. You're expecting him to maybe have to play 3 or 4 games during the season if he's the quarterback. So, like Luke says, with all the quarterback chatter the last few weeks, I remind myself we're talking about second and third stringers. I'd be okay with Mayfield in that role on a cheap contract. Yeah, and that contract's probably going to be somewhere under $8 million and below. Same thing with Andy Dalton. I think he's going to be right around that same range, probably in that 6 and below number. Andy Dalton, I think, is a solid backup option for the 49ers. We saw him play decent with the New Orleans Saints last year. Again, this is the guy who bring him into San Francisco. I think he elevates the backup position if he's called upon there for Andy Dalton. Another name that isn't mentioned very much that I think makes a lot of sense to the 49ers is Marcus Mariota. He was just released by Atlanta, but Mariota makes a ton of sense for the 49ers too. He has the ability to run the read option, the zone read, and those types of things. He's a mobile quarterback in the system and doing the things that the 49ers would ask you to do. I think he'd be just fine. Again, Jacoby Brissett is another one. So Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield, Andy Dalton. I think those are probably your top 4. A guy like Jarrett Stidham from the Raiders, I wouldn't be upset to see him brought in and compete. I think Jarrett Stidham showed well during his time with the Raiders at the end of the season. I think he could come in and he has the athleticism and the arm talent to be able to come in and make all the throws and all the plays. So that's a good one. And then KW2421 comes in with Carson Wentz. This is one that, my initial response is no. Don't like Carson Wentz. Don't want Carson Wentz around the 49ers. I just don't. This is a guy who had a really good season in 2017 before he got hurt, but other than that, he just hasn't been good. When it comes to Carson Wentz, the thing here is, though, again, you talk about all those other quarterbacks, and maybe that's where Kyle Shanahan, changes it, and is able to get him to make some plays between having all the talent that he'd have around him here and having Kyle Shanahan call plays. Maybe Carson Wentz could have a little bit of revival if he's willing to take a low cost deal. If you just kind of go back in time a little bit, Kyle Shanahan has spoken glowing terms about Carson Wentz and how much he liked Carson Wentz coming out of North Dakota State and how he wished that the 49ers had the opportunity to, or had the opportunity when Wentz was coming out to go up and get him. But I don't think he was with the 49ers at that time yet. That was when he was at Atlanta still, so it wasn't a player he was going to be able to get, but that he really liked Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz is willing to take a cheap deal to come to the 49ers and be a backup, and you have Carson Wentz, and that wouldn't be something that would be a bad deal, I think, for the 49ers. Carson Wentz would be an interesting one. So that's kind of where we are with the quarterbacks. And then, in terms of the news that came out today, big news for the 49ers. I think it's big news for the 49ers. Colton McKivitz gets an extension, a 2-year extension for Colton McKivitz. He was a 2020 draft pick of the 49ers. So the reason, though, that he was in the position where he was a restricted free agent going into this season was because he was actually released at one point by the 49ers, and then they brought him back. So they made him that makes him become a restricted free agent. They get a 2-year deal done for Colton McKivitz. The numbers aren't out yet on that. I don't expect them to be very high. It's going to be on the lower end. McKivitz is a guy who, from West Virginia. That's where he played his college ball. As a rookie in 2020, made 3 starts for the 49ers. He was cut in preseason, I believe it was, up before 2021 season, then re-signed. Everybody who follows the 49ers probably remembers Colton McKivitz, the name Colton McKivitz from the end of the 2021 season when he had to step in and start at left tackle against the Rams in Week 18 down in Los Angeles. Struggled a little bit in that game. Struggled a lot, actually, in that game in pass protection. But the 49ers were able to manage around it and come from a 17-point deficit to win. This year, he started one game in 2022, again against the Rams. That was in the game at Levi Stadium on Monday night, and played decent in that game. McKivitz is a guy who's always been kind of a swing tackle, but with the situation where it is with Mike McGlinchey, don't expect him to be back. 49ers don't expect him to be back. You expect him to be outside of their price range or what they're going to be willing to spend for that position. So you get McKivitz back, and instead of doing it just on a one-year deal on a tender kind of an offer, you sign him to a 2-year contract, which is why I think it's going to be lower on the lower end. It's going to be a lot less than what the low-level tender was, I think, $2.3 million. So I would expect him to be probably around $1.5 to $2 million per year on this extension that he signed. We'll see what the numbers are when they become available. But McKivitz right now is a guy that you can move forward with as your starting right tackle. But I don't think that this excludes the 49ers from going out and going after Caleb McGrary from the Falcons or Jermaine Almanor from the Raiders, a couple of solid right tackles in free agency, or going out in the draft and going after somebody in the draft as well. So again, the McKivitz extension is a low-cost deal. Somebody that could be a functional starter for you at tackle if you need to, if you're not able to get the players that you want. But I don't think that the 49ers are done at tackle right now. I think they're going to try to add a player, maybe two. Part of what tells me that is the fact that it was only a 2-year extension. If they were looking at McKivitz being the starter long term, I think the extension would have been a little bit different. So the 49ers get this done. It's good for the 49ers in that they have their right tackle position, somebody there under contract. We'll see where that goes from here. The other big news for the 49ers today is around the draft. And the 49ers have had a number of coaches and front office personnel move on to head coaching roles and general management front office roles over the last 3 years. Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniels, D'Amico Ryans as coaches, Rand Carthon moving on this season to become the general manager in Tennessee. And then there was another one as well who they had another front office person who moved on, and I don't make a mistake here. And it was Martin Mayhew who was with the 49ers. So Martin Mayhew and Rand Carthon going from the front office to general manager positions. Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniels, and D'Amico Ryans becoming head coaches. So with those 5 changes, the 49ers picked up several third-round selections as a result. So in this year's draft, they're going to have 3 third-round picks due to comps. Those are the McDaniels for the minority hirings that went on there. You look at their draft selections, number 99 in the 3rd round, that's going to be their first pick of the draft if they don't trade up. That's a comp pick as well as 101 and 102. So those are all coming at the end of the 3rd round. The 7 comp picks that the 49ers picked up brings their total to 11. The 49ers have 11 picks going into this draft, all from round 3 through 7. They have 3 in the 3rd, 2 in the 5th. They have a 6th, which was a comp pick. One of their comp picks was also a 5th. They have their own a 7th round pick, 2 7th round picks, plus 2 more comp picks in the 7th round. So when you look at it, 3 thirds, 2 fifths, 1 6th, and 4 7ths. So a lot of picks there at the end of the draft for the 49ers. Expect them to be busy. I don't think they're going to use all 11 picks. I would expect to see them package some things, and they're going to move around the draft board to get the guys that they want. You may see them trade up at some point here. There's a lot of talk about them possibly trading up into the early third, late second round for a player. There's different ones to look at there. I put out an article for the Press Democrat right before the NFL scouting combine last week with a list of different players. A bunch of those have come up as guys who had really good scouting combines, especially at the offensive line. Cody Mauch from North Dakota State, he's a tackle. We'll see where he lands. He might be a little bit too high for the 49ers, but a couple of other names that have tested really well are Wanya Morris from Oklahoma and Blake Freeland from BYU. Freeland is one that I really like. You look at his ability to pull and protect one-on-one. I think he has the makeup of somebody that could step in at right tackle for the 49ers in terms of his athleticism and his ability to hold his own in that pass set. So that's the direction that we could see the 49ers going there. So there's, I'll get into the draft a lot more in the weeks to come. Right now we have free agency coming up next. So, I mentioned the two names that I'd be looking for in terms of a tackle. If we were going to be going out and seeing the 49ers bringing in new players, Mike McGlinchey, I think is going to just be too high. Like I said, although I would have him be one of the priority re-signings if possible. I don't think it's going to happen. So that falls back to Caleb McGarry from the Falcons. I think this is a name that I've seen a lot of people talking about. And again, if Mike McGlinchey is going to be too expensive for you at 4 years, $64 million, I don't think McGarry is going to be there for the 49ers either. He's going to be probably around 4 years, $60 million. So you're looking at $1 million a year difference. I don't think the 49ers lose McGlinchey over $1 million a year. So that's why I said Jermaine Elmanor from the Raiders, might see them go more in that direction. A 2-year, $7.5 million deal, somewhere around there. That's about about 3.5 or so per year, $3.25 million or so per year. I think that makes sense for where the 49ers are right now, if they go the free agent route with the tackle position. So we'll see. And then the other thing when we're looking at the offensive line, just for a second, if Jake Brendel doesn't come back, I think Brendel's a guy who you look at what Jake Brendel did in his first season as a starter. I know people look at Brendel and they're like, hey, this guy's been around the NFL forever. He wasn't a guy who really did anything, but the 49ers were very good with Jake Brendel last year. Brendel was named as a Pro Bowl alternate in his first season as a starter. You look at Brendel's numbers from the combine, they're off the chart from his athleticism. That shows up with his play on the field. If the 49ers can somehow bring Jake Brendel back at 2 years, $4.5 million, 2 years, $5 million, that's a terrific deal for the 49ers for where they are. Doesn't mean that they still can't develop a guy like Nick Zakelj to take over that job down the road, or maybe draft a center. Those are kind of the directions that I would go. I think, there's a couple of other names also. The one that's really been out there a lot is Ethan Pocic from the Browns. He's 3 years, $21 million, a little on the higher side. He's, not the youngest guy out there either, but he's solid. His combine numbers a little bit below where Brendel's were. So they're, similar players. And then also Bradley Bozeman, 3 years, $13.5 million. I just look at these guys though, and I say to myself, Brendel for, $5 million over 2 years. That's a better deal than a Bozeman or a Pocic. So we'll see the direction that they decide to go. And then Jaguayo coming in with a super chat. He says, is there any word on Gibson if he stays? Do we draft safety? This is a really good one. And I wanted to talk about Tayshaun Gibson because from all the reports that I've seen, Tayshaun Gibson wants to play again this season. The 49ers are on record as saying that they would like to bring Tayshaun Gibson back. If they can make this happen, if they do decide that they're going to bring Gibson back, that's fine. The 49ers, to your question, Jaquayo, if the 49ers decide that they want to re-sign Tayshaun Gibson for a season, I think they're still going to draft a safety. Even if they sign him, I still think they draft safety because right now they think they only have 2 safeties under contract that played for him last year. I think the only safeties that they have right now that are currently under contract are Talanoa Hufanga and George Odom. So sign Tayshaun Gibson, still go out there and draft a safety so you have a guy for the long term. That makes a ton of sense. So again, the short answer to your question, if Gibson stays, do we draft safety? I think so. I think that would be what they would do. Would be what I would suggest that they do. The other one really quick, before I try not to sneeze here, Jimmy Ward. This is the other safety with the 49ers. And there's Jimmy Ward has said on one of his Instagram lives this week that don't rule out me coming back to the 49ers. Don't rule me out playing, getting top end nickel money, those types of things. If the 49ers can bring back Jimmy Ward and they can bring him back to play nickel for them for a couple more years, that's a good deal for the 49ers, I think. He's a guy who can definitely fill that role for you. He's as a former safety, he's kind of like your third linebacker in your nickel sets and things like that. Jimmy Ward, as a member of the 49ers on a $7-8 million contract annually, would make a ton of sense if they could make that work out. And we'll see what happens with that. But if they can bring back Jimmy Ward, that would be a good move for the 49ers. Still, they have a lot of flexibility within this roster with different players. But a player like Ward with his versatility for a couple of years would make a lot of sense for this team if they're able to make it work. So keep an eye on Jimmy Ward. Keep an eye, like Luke says here in the comments, coaches love the versatility of Jimmy Ward. They love his football IQ. That's something that we've heard from the Kyle Shanahan regime from day one, that they like these things about Jimmy Ward. That goes back to when they decided to re-sign him the first time. So I like what Ward brings to the table. He's a playmaker and somebody that could really help this team out if there's a way that they can make this work. So, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, we've got tomorrow. There's the 49er news that we're going to be keeping an eye on is Brock Purdy's UCL surgery. And the other thing too with the 49ers is contract restructures. I'm seeing comments about the 49ers maybe making a number of restructures here in the coming days. I personally don't think that's what's going to happen. There's no reason to go out and restructure players just to restructure them. I think what you'll see, because right now you don't have to be, there's no contracts that are going to be done until Wednesday at 1:00 Pacific time. That's when contracts become official. So the 49ers can go out there. They can do all these negotiations with these players on Monday and Tuesday. They can have talks already internally with their own players, all these kind of things. These restructures are going to hit closer to Monday as they start to make moves with where they're going and how much money they have to free up. That's how much money they're going to free up. They're not going to go out and just free up a bunch of money and restructure a bunch of contracts just to restructure them to say, hey, woo, look at us. We have a bunch of salary cap space. No, they have flexibility to free up about $60 million if they wanted to maximize it. So we'll see what they do. And Raymond Martinez says, Jimmy's versatility is so invaluable to the team. Re-sign him. Agree. I mean, that's the reason that you would bring him back, right? He's that versatility of being able to play free safety, slot, team leader, third linebacker kind of role in that nickel. So I agree with you. If they can bring Jimmy back, if Jimmy Ward is willing to come back to the 49ers and have that role, not necessarily maybe being your starting free safety, but a utility guy that can play all over the place is kind of a top end on the pay scale at that, absolutely bring him back. And I think Jimmy Ward is worth doing that. As a starting free safety, I'm not sure I would do that, but we'll see. Jaguayo, if the 49ers can sign either defensive tackle or edge, who do they sign? On this one, my defensive edge guys that I have for the 49ers are Unique Ngakoue. He was with the Colts last year. I think he's kind of at the top end of that market. Bonio man, I'm butchering these names. Agbonia Okoronkwo. He was with Houston last year. He's a guy who I think really might step up. And then Justin Houston is another one. As far as defensive tackles, Greg Gaines from the Los Angeles Rams would be a player that I would like to see them maybe go out and sign. Greg Gaines, if you go back and you watch the NFC Championship game in 2021 in particular, he dominated in that game along the line of scrimmage. It was really the play of Gaines and Eric Weddle. The way that those two played against the 49ers in that NFC Championship game gave the 49ers offensive line fits, gave the 49ers offense overall fits. Gaines is more of a run stuffer, but he did have 4 sacks last year. He's not that bad at getting to the quarterback. So he would be a cheaper guy to keep an eye on, would be Greg Gaines from the Rams, Joao. And I appreciate your super chat. And then one more super chat before we wrap it up. And we've got it's from Eric Daney. He says, can any of last year's redshirts step into bigger roles? I'm curious if Kalia Davis can be a safety net behind Javon Kinlaw. And this is one that I do think. I do think that Kalia Davis, you look at his athleticism, you look at his body type, and he's kind of a more athletic version of DJ Jones. I do think that he can push for a role on this team. I think he would be more of a safety net kind of behind Javon Kinlaw, or maybe even take over Javon Kinlaw's role as a starter and move Kinlaw to more of a pass rush role or something else. So he doesn't have to worry about trying to stop the run. But yeah, I do think in terms of the red shirts from last season, Kalia Davis, Eric, is the top one that I can think of that's going to probably make the biggest impression. I think we see Danny Gray make a little bit of a step up next year. Gray is a guy who, as the 2022 season rolled along, began to get more and more snaps as the season went. So I think they liked what they saw there. So Danny Gray, I know not necessarily a redshirt, but somebody who could step into a bigger role. Another one who I would say might not step into a bigger role is Ty Davis Price. I know they use a third-round pick on him, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to supplant Jordan as the running back there. I'm not sure. I think TDP is the one guy who might not step into a bigger role. So we'll see how that plays out for the Flyers. But I do like this one. I do like Kalia Davis as being one who's going to step into a bigger role for the Flyers in 2023. But beyond that, I don't see any. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up now. But I want to say thanks to everybody that took the time to watch the show. Those of you that tuned in, you guys were really good over in the comment section. Lots of questions. JP Mason, that's the one that I was trying to get at there. Rodney Hudson released from the Cardinals. I think Hudson's at the end of the line there. I don't think that he's somebody that the 49ers would want to invest in as a potential starter, that type of thing. Eric says last year we thought they needed a safety, but they knew Hufanga was capable of being a starter. Yeah, that's one that I was talking about throughout the offseason was telling Hufanga. You could tell that the team really liked what they had there. That's why they kept playing him as much as they did the season before. And I don't know why people were so negative on it. The guy just went out and was named to the All-Pro team in his first year as a starter. So sometimes we see thoughts on players and they just don't match up with what you're seeing from the coaching staff. Hufanga was definitely one of them. We'll see what happens there with Kalia Davis. But before I go, I just want to say thanks to everybody that took the time to watch the show. Thanks to those of you in the comment section. You guys have been fantastic with your questions and keeping me on track with some of the different topics that I wanted to hit on tonight. But like I said, tomorrow, big day. We're going to find out what's going on with Brock Purdy. As that comes up, as that news comes out, keep it locked in here to Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. I will definitely be making sure that I come on and providing updates on that surgery as they become available. So you'll see all that here on the channel. Really quick, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification. That way you don't miss any of this anytime that I go live. I've been also adding smaller videos and things throughout the day as news comes up. If you have the little bell notification, you'll be notified anytime anything gets uploaded so that you can check it out. Also, in the bigger ask here, hit that like button as well. When you hit the like button, That's what helps to grow the signal of the channel. The more you hit the like button, or the more times the like button is hit, the more it gets pushed out for people to check it out. So hit that bell note, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Check out 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Keep yourself locked in here to Inside the Farmers with Jack Hammer. Thanks a lot, everybody. Look forward to talking to y'all soon tomorrow. I do expect to be on a few times, like I said. So keep it locked in here for all your news and updates. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. We'll talk soon.